Please listen carefully.
Welcome to the Retail Conversations podcast. This is Morten Max. This is the 10th episode in the series, a small personal milestone actually achieved now. Maybe I should celebrate that somehow. A few inputs before I bring you today's guest. I have received a bit of feedback from you on the podcast, and thank you for that. It is nice that someone wants to listen to it. I find myself very much expanding my understanding of retail at a significant level, I must say, through these conversations. And if other people find it valuable as well, that is a solid bonus. I got a feedback from a connection in my network who said that he believes I should or ought to shorten down the length of the episodes. Many of the guides actually say you should only do maximum 20 minutes. And another comment also said that maybe it would be a good idea to start marketing the podcast itself to boost the number of listeners. That is indeed a valid feedback, especially if my aim was to build this into a business concept. This could be the case one day, but I really want to try and keep the concept organic and just actually enjoy trying to learn how to become a decent podcaster here. A quick reminder that your inputs regarding the conversation I will be having with Nick Shackleton-Jones soon are more than welcome. We do have an agenda ready, but Nick insisted, and I really like his idea, that you get the chance to affect the conversation we will have. So, what should Nick and I address and discuss within the realm of learning and development, training, education, engagement, and so forth? Write us at info@retailconversations.dk and we will add some of the questions to our conversation. Very soon, and with some delay I must say, we will be launching a retail book series project, which I am very excited about. It has been in the making for a long time, for many reasons, but I have finally had the time to finish the puzzle here. It will be free to download the book on the site we will launch, so let's see how you retailers will embrace that. Today I am speaking with Marc-Christian Riebe. Marc is a well-acclaimed real estate broker with many years to his belt in the industry. He currently focuses his work and contribution in his company elocations.com, which primarily brings brokers, landlords and retailers together. In my book, it is a very smart, very solid, and a very simple concept. My take on Marc is that he is truly trying to create healthy competition that creates a win for all parties here. He is also the editor of the Retail Market Study, and he offers his expertise to industry brokers to help them become more successful. In the conversation I had with Marc, it occurred to me that it seems like Marc knows all retail companies in existence. And he knows where they are located, where they want to be located, and what will happen to them in the near future. At the same time, he seems like a very down-to-earth and decent person. Who would have thought of that of a retail broker? As always, I like to talk about the background of the person, so we do kick off with that. But that brings us into the real estate realm, where we discuss many different aspects of retail. Please enjoy Marc-Christian Riebe. I am here with Marc-Christian Riebe. Marc, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Marc, I invited you on the podcast first and foremost because one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast is that I really want to keep myself curious and sharp in the realm of retail, and you kept popping up on my LinkedIn feed, so you must be doing something right with your marketing there.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a fantastic connection tool to get attention from business people, especially from retail and from real estate people who are of interest for me. And we are posting the shop opening news. So that's how you probably saw me.
Exactly. And that made me more curious. two-sided actually. It made me curious on your company, eLocations Limited, which we will talk about soon. But it also made me curious just to talk on the competence and expertise of real estate actually. It's not a chair I have been sitting in my retail experience, so I'm really curious to have a conversation on that angle. And also, I'm looking forward to actually being upgraded and bombarded with expert angles.
Let's do it, yeah.
But Mark, before we start digging into your specialty and expertise of real estate, please give our listeners a little bit of an insight into you as a profile and your background with your own words.
Yes, I'm born in 1973 and went to school in Constance, at the Lake Constance. And when I finished school, I did an apprenticeship as a real estate businessman, in German Kaufmann in der Grundstücks- und Wohnungswirtschaft. Then worked a year with Allianz in Munich. Thought I should better go back to school doing the A-level degree, then in evening classes, then studied in Bremen and in Leeds, did a traineeship with Ernst & Young in a summer break. So I ended up first in the audit team of Ernst & Young in Mannheim, and then at the transaction support team in Frankfurt. That's where I learned the business English, or I improved it, and saw at the same time always the real estate landscape. Especially I was interested in retail, maybe because I grew up in a jewelry shop of my grandmother. When I was very young, after kindergarten, I helped her polishing the rings. And so finally, after Ernst & Young, I came back to the southern part of Germany, went to Kreuzlingen and then to Zurich, and founded the Location Group, a brokerage company, and did the first market report about Zurich. It was a one-pager, which ended up now in 1,500 pages of shop openings around the world in the 500 most important cities, which is the retail market study right now. And besides my brokerage work, where I did work all over Europe, for example, for Gucci, Moncler, or Brunello Cucinelli, but also for Zara and H&M in Switzerland, I always had this idea about creating something on the internet. In 2007, I had no idea what it could be at the end. It was always this idea, doing something with the data we collected. And so this ended up in the eLocations Limited at the end. So we collected 2 years ago about 15,000 shop openings around the world. We created a news article and posted it. And now we have more than 35,000 shop opening news online on eLocations. And this was the beginning of eLocations.com.
If I understand you right, Mark, it started actually as, of course, the passion for the industry, but making a unified or a combined platform where all the shop openings were listed and news were brought, right?
Correct.
And that has then transformed into the eLocations Limited.
Right.
Can you tell a little bit more about first the retail market study, a little bit more about that, and then how it grew into the eLocations?
Yeah, so the first market report we did about Zurich in 2005, 2006. Then the next year we did all Switzerland. And in 2010, 2011, we published around 100 pages. And then I thought, why not doing the whole world? In 2012, we published the first book with 500 pages. And I sent it to 5,000 retail people in the world, from Giorgio Armani until Z, like Zara, Bernard Arnault from Louis Vuitton, and his son as well as his daughter. So to all major players in retail and real estate worldwide. And the year later, it was roughly 1,000 pages about almost 3,000 shop openings at this time in the book. The book was so big that we had to split it into 3 smaller books again, like at the beginning, the 500 pages. We did 1 book for Americas, 1 book for Europe, and 1 book for Asia, Pacific, and Africa, each roughly 500 pages. And still, again, we sent it all around the world. I think not to 5,000 people because the weight was so heavy and expensive in the postage. So the postage was at the end more expensive than the printing of the book.
Okay.
Yeah, and in 2014, then it was clear what we have to do to bring it on the internet. What we then did a year later in 2015, we went online with a simple website and we listed all the shop openings, went down to the street and placed the pin of this special news at the door of the shop directly, so that you know if you have 4 shops in one building, for example, that you exactly know this shop is the second one off the left. And yeah, this was a lot of work at the beginning, and that's how we created the website.
Tell a little bit more about the e-locations that started with this, and what has that grown into since then? I see it both as a retail opening news, but also it's also a real estate store listing, right?
Correct. So we tried at the beginning we tried to sell the news and the data, but nobody wanted to pay. So we stopped the project and thought, what can we do to generate money out of it? Then I went to Palo Alto, to Sunnyvale, to San Francisco and met investors, business angels, and venture capitalists. And everybody told me, Mark, we don't finance you with brokerage commissions or data. We want to have a recurring income stream. And this must be listings. So you must be the disruptor of LoopNet in America. It's a property listings company for rentals and for commercial sales. And so you find many shops for rent there, but no H&M or no Louis Vuitton will look for a new shop actually on such a website. Not in Switzerland, not in Germany, not in America. And with our data and with our shop opening news, we make these kind of people interested in our website. And this brought us then to the second new idea to post the listings for shops for rent worldwide. And actually we have 4,500 shops which are for rent at the moment globally. Most of them are in North America or in England and in Switzerland for the moment, but also in Hong Kong or in Australia. And so this is the new e-locations. The foundation is the data about the shops. We have now almost 100,000 identified shops in more than 1,500 high streets worldwide. So we tripled the number of the cities of the retail market study and completed the shopping streets. So you see in Bahnhofstrasse in Zurich, in Fifth Avenue, New Bond Street, or in Ostergaarde, you see all the existing shops now, plus the shop opening news. So you can see which new shops opened there. Plus, and this is now new, you can see which shops are for rent in the countries I mentioned before.
I know that you state on your website that the aim is actually to reach 3 million locations in the 20,000 most interesting shopping cities, right?
Exactly, correct.
Okay, so that's the aim. And you're saying now that you are already, what is the current status on that one? You're on 1,500 main streets, you said, and you have more than 100,000 identified locations.
Correct. So we have to put the pin for each shop on the map by hand the first time. So we have to identify each shop manually by hand. And that's a big work we have to do once, and then we have to update roughly 5% every year.
I'm feeling more lucky that you had time to talk to me for a little while here.
Yeah, luckily I have very busy colleagues. They are doing this job brilliant, wonderful, and much better than I could do it.
Where does the passion for this, creating this platform, where does that passion come from?
Thank you again for the question. I was asked this also before, and I went back in my life to the very beginning. As I said before, after kindergarten, I went to my grandmother's jewelry shop and polished her rings and got some pocket money. And then a couple of years later, my father took me to his construction sites of his properties. And maybe that's the reason why I brought retail and real estate, these two disciplines, together. But honestly, when I stopped working with Ernst & Young, I was 1 year with my younger brother, and he was renting out the shopping center Lago in Constance and did a lot of money with it. And I thought, why I'm still here with Ernst & Young, and joined him. So we tried it for 1 year, but it was not the right match with the two brothers. And then normally I wanted to do something completely different and applied with retailers. But at the same time, I met my wife. We are now married for 10 years and 12 years together. And in Germany, I have a saying, du machst aus der Not eine Tugend. Very difficult in English to translate this. So at this time, I didn't know how to earn my money in Zurich, because in the real estate industry, everybody knew the name of my brother. And I didn't want to go back to Ernst & Young. So I went from bank to bank with my business plan. And the last bank on Bahnhofstrasse was Zurich Cantonal Bank. They gave me a loan of 100,000 Swiss francs. And so I started my own business, which was named Location Services at the beginning. But then everybody came to me with location services questions and not with brokerage questions. And so I changed the name then to Location Retail. And a couple of years later, then with Location Investment and Location Luxury, it became the Location Group. That's the story about it.
What fascinates you with working with this real estate, this brokerage shop listing industry?
So in beginning of 2015, exactly on the 15th of January, there was Swiss franc crisis with the currency problem in Switzerland. And overnight, when the Swiss National Bank cut the minimum exchange rate to the euro, Switzerland was a double more expensive as it was before overnight.
Wow.
And nobody wanted to open new shops in Switzerland. And then at the end, it was only 30% a couple of weeks later. But still, Switzerland was much too expensive, and a lot of retail chains went bankrupt and closed all their shops. At this time, I did 3 projects, for example, with Michael Kors in Geneva, in Basel, and in Zurich. And the next cities should have been Lausanne, Lucerne, and Lugano. But as I said, all the other retailers also stopped. And so all my clients put Switzerland on hold, put it on ice. And this was, for me, at the end, despite it was not a nice year, a lucky situation that I could concentrate more or less 100% on the project, on the startup elocations.com.
For those of us who don't have the insight and the expertise and experience as you have within real estate, give us a little bit of just a basic insight into when you work with real estate. What are you focused on? What kind of angles do you take? What is important, and so on?
So it always depends who is asking me to work for him. Is it the retailer or is it the landlord? If a retailer asks me to work for him, I try to achieve the best result for him so that he has the lowest rent possible, but still for sure the best location. It's always about the positioning of the store, and that's why you have this saying, it's all about location, which makes the success of a store. And that's true. You can be 50 meters behind, you have a fantastic property, but if there's nobody walking on the street, then for most of the brands, it's not a good location. It could be good for Christian Louboutin, for example, because people are searching his shops, or the ladies are searching his shops, especially for his shoes with the red sole. Now, if a landlord asks me to work for him, for sure he wants to achieve the opposite and to get the best friend. But in most of the cases, I try to find a compromise, and at the end, the landlords are also happy because I propose them to negotiate a turnover rent with the retailer. And so I have a very famous landlord in Zurich, which is Bert Kurti with a C. And this guy owns a property in the old town in Marktgasse, the oldest street in Zurich. And I brought him Kos from H&M. And at the beginning, he wanted to have a fixed rent. And now at the end, he gets a double of the fixed rent he wanted to have at the beginning. And both are happy because Kos is doing the best turnover in the world with this shop. And the landlord gets also the best rent he could never have imagined at this time when he rented it out now 3.5 years ago.
That specific angle of negotiating a contract, a lease contract, that is something I have overheard in my years working with different retail managers operating on different markets. It seems that is something you have to be very delicate and very focused on finding the right solution, right? Because it can end up being the death or the survival of a store.
Exactly. So many times you have the situation that the tenant or the landlord that they want to stop the negotiations because they're all individuals and every case has different factors. Every shop has different features, and mostly it's the art of handling and negotiations with these two parties. And as I have doing this now for nearly 15 years in my life, I said that there are enough people outside in this world who can do this job because I already know it, and I better teach these people who want to learn more about it. And that's why I wrote a book. In German, the name is Mit Gold gepflastert. In English, it would have been Paved with Gold. But there are too many titles in English with Paved with Gold. And so the title in English is Key Money Talks. And in this book, a young broker can read how to become self-employed and how to create his own company. And what I've learned from Jean-Claude Biver, the chairman of Hublot and CEO now of Tag Heuer, and Zenith from LVMH, jewelry and watches. I met him at the conference in Lausanne of the Financial Times Luxury Summit. And I asked him, Mr. Biver, because I heard about Hublot TV, Mr. Biver, we just created Location TV. And at this time, I was doing the interviews with the former Miss Switzerland, Tanya Goodman. And I asked him if we can interview him in one of his new boutiques, for example, at Place Vendôme in Paris. And he said immediately, yes, if I pay half of the kerosene. And then in the next sentence, he said, oh, Mr. Riebe, I have also a new shop in Bond Street in London. If you want, we can fly after Paris also to London and continue the interview on New Bond Street. And for sure, I said yes. And so we created also Location TV to show people all around the world how it works with new shops and how the shopping streets look like. We've been in Shanghai, in Beijing, in Hanoi, in Sao Paulo, in Argentina, in LA, Las Vegas, New York, and many cities in Europe. And so come back to the beginning. My role is changing now. I don't work any longer as a broker as I did before, but as an advisor for brokers. So brokers today have the same challenge as I had at the beginning. You are fishing. So you have a big sea or a lake and many potential fishers, which are the retailers. And one of these fishes is hungry and bites into, I think angel is the same like in German when you do the fishing. And so there's one fish who bites in it, who is hungry. Because you're lucky. You make 100 phone calls and then you find one who tells you, okay, I'm interested in the shop. But theoretically, you have maybe 10, 20 or 30 more interested brokers, but you don't have their telephone number and you don't know how to reach them, how to call them, because you don't know if they're interested or not. And that's why we created also this website to find out who is interested in renting shops, who is expanding at the moment, who is hungry, and who wants to bite. And because we have this knowledge, we sell this information to the brokers, and we don't want any money from them at the beginning. Only at the end, if we're both successful, if we brought him the tenant who rented the shop or the buyer who bought the property, then we get only 10% of the total commission. That's a business model, besides the listings income. So we want also that the brokers advertise all their shops on our website so that it's easier to tell them who is interested in their listing.
It sounds like to me that with these almost or more than 15 years of focusing specifically on the brokerage thing, but also the location side of this business, it seems like you're a professional matchmaker between the retailers and the landlords.
Exactly, this is what I did all the years, yeah.
And now you're the matchmaker within where you're advising the new upcoming real estate gurus, where Correct. You're matching them with the network and the retailers and the landlords, you know.
Correct. I want to make all these brokers out in the world, I want to make them more successful so that they close more deals a year. Typically, they're doing now 10. If they're very good, maybe 15 or 20 transactions every year. And I want to make them double of what they're doing right now.
So based on the understanding and insight you have into real estate and brokerage and so on, how do you see the world of retail doing right now?
No, it's clearly in a transformation process. This landscape is changing completely. Also for the big brands like H&M and Zara, they're losing a turnover on the street in the shops. That's why, for example, H&M is concentrating their stores. So in many cities you see 3, 4 or 5 H&M shops in the street. And in many of those streets, they try to have only 2 or maybe 3 big flagship stores. And they're shutting down all the small ones. And also for brands like Apple, it's not the same like 10 years ago when Steve Jobs was opening the stores. Now it's Angela Arendt who is responsible, the former CEO of Burberry. And she wants to have much bigger stores as they opened 10 years ago, because if you look at them at the moment, like in Munich or in Zurich, these stores are too small because too many people want to enter the stores. And for sure, Zalando in Germany or all over Europe probably, they make big stores and question marks on the shoe retailers, because they take a lot of this business. And then companies like Decathlon, they take a lot from the sports retailers, both with their new stores as well as online on the internet. And then the most important, and probably beside Google and Apple, also the biggest company now in the world, Amazon, very soon they will come not only with whole food markets, supermarkets and bookshops, but also like Alibaba with their own department stores. That's my vision of the future of retail, that you have much bigger locations, but less of the brands, especially in the fashion segment. You will have less brands in the middle. You will have more these top shops and Uniqlo's, Zara and H&M at the lower end, and then the luxury brands on the other end. And also if you see Ralph Lauren, for example, they have big problems with their shops. They rented a store on Fifth Avenue 2 years ago, paying 26 million rent every year. And after less than 2 years, they closed the shop because it's cheaper for them to keep it closed than operating it and losing less money. But this 26 million, what they're paying every year, I think it was between 5 and 10% of their net profit. So it's a big point in the balance sheet or in their profit and loss account. And that's why they fired the former CEO who came from H&M. And there you can also see that somebody who is dealing with mass market brands cannot handle such a premium brand like Ralph Lauren. It's a different world.
So you started off by saying that you see there is a big transition going on in retail at the moment. And from what I understood, you said you see a transition that different brands are focusing on the amount of storefronts they want, like the H&M going from maybe 5 to 6 in a city to going down to the half of that maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only focusing on the amount of storefronts, but also focusing on having even bigger shops. So you see that people will consolidate having fewer storefronts, but many of them will then increase their square meters.
Correct.
And then on the other hand, you say also these online big players that are disrupting both online and offline retail as we know it, right?
Right.
And then a third angle, you say that you see a vision for these big locations, department stores created by Alibaba or Amazon.
Exactly, like the department stores at the moment. In Innum, the new owner is the same like of the KaDeWe in Berlin or the La Rinascente in Milano. So you need real professional companies with big pockets to finance the transition of the old department store format to the new one. And this can only survive if you do a luxury department store, or because they are mostly offline or do less than 10% of their turnover online. And only such companies like Amazon or Alibaba can survive with big department stores. And necessarily, they don't have to be in the AAA locations like the department stores today. They can also be in a side street or in an old shopping center, for example, because people will search for it. They will drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes to go there because they will find all the bargains, they will find all the special products, what they see on the internet, but what they still want to touch, what they want to keep in their hand. And not everybody is willing to send back a parcel or ordering 3 different pair of shoes and then luckily having one which fits and then sending back the other 2 parcels to Zalando or to another online retailer. They wanna see the shop, the product in the shop.
In relation to this, in a former episode, I talked to a woman called Louise Buch-Kongsholm, and she's the owner of the Scandinavian Trend Institute that are specialized in lifestyle and fashion. And she talked about that she also sees a transition where the food and beverage percentage in these big department stores is playing an even bigger role and will play an even bigger role in the future. And she sees that is needed to create that amount of traffic that we need. And she also sees that these food courts will actually go out of fashion, that all these food and beverage locations needs to be placed throughout and in between all these, as you say, luxury brands and different parts. Do you have any angle on that?
Mm-hmm. So the best example is again in New York, in the New World Trade Center, where you have the Italian food brand, I call it Italy. They opened their second store in Manhattan at the World Trade Center. And don't ask me how big it is, but I guess it's 10,000 square meters. You have all the food and at least 5 or 6 different kind of restaurants within the store. So you have all the Italian products you can imagine. You have olives, you have olive oil, you have all the spaghettis, all the lasagne, pizza, and bread, and so many different products. I don't know how many breads they have, but you cannot eat all of them within a month, what they sell. Impossible. Yeah, only one of each brand, I mean. So that's at the direction, the western end of the World Trade Center. And at the eastern end of the World Trade Center, I forgot the name, it's a French competitor. So within all the brands of Gucci, Bottega Veneta, and the other luxury brands, you have also a smaller, a kind of a French Italy, which is a little bit more upscale, a little bit more premium or luxury. And Italy is more for the mass. So in this example, these kind of shops will be integrated in shopping malls and in shopping centers so that you stay longer, that you don't only buy one handbag or one pair of shoes and then you go. So in between you have lunch, breakfast or dinner, and then maybe you go again because you feel so lucky after the champagne or whatever you drank or ate, and then you continue shopping.
So again, the focus on actually inspiring us to spend even more time. I think we would always say we've done that in retail, but the focus on how much time can we actually consume of our consumer's day, right?
Correct. So trying to keep them staying in your shop as long as possible.
So if I was a new real estate person, if I wanted to go that direction with my career, what kind of advice would you give me? I know that you live from this, but what kind of advice in general would you give me?
Thank you for the hint. That's where I wanted to continue. When we, in the private chat of Jean-Claude Biver, from Sion, near Geneva to Paris and then to London and back to Zurich, this was the best day in my life for learning, better than all the years in university or at school. In this probably 3 hours in the plane, he gave me this one sentence I always remember. He said, Riebe, if you want to be really successful, do everything different than your competitors are doing. And then swim against the stream like the salmons are doing it. And this I remembered my whole, let's say not the whole life, but the last 5 years or 6 years since we did this interview with him. And not only this, but also when he started 35 or 40 years ago with Blancpain, which he sold to the Swatch Group, there was also a crisis with the watchmakers in Switzerland. There were many jobless people, and he tried to get financing for his brand. He just bought the name, Blancpain, and he went to the mayor of Lausanne and asked him for an appointment, and he said, come to my office at 5 o'clock. Yes, 5 p.m. or 5 a.m. And the mayor said, for sure, 5 a.m., Mr. Beaver. So he went there 5 o'clock in the morning, and I make the long story short, it's all on YouTube, these kind of interviews with him. The mayor told him, look, if you stand up 2 hours earlier every morning, then you have so many weeks at the end of the year, advantages to your competitors because you and your people worked so much longer. So that's your advantage. What I give you as a Subvention, we say in German, for your watchmakers. And then he thought, okay, I don't stand up at 5 o'clock because he's really crazy. He stood up at 3 o'clock and all his co-founders also. So they started at 3 o'clock in the morning and then made a fantastic brand out of it, sold it to the Swatch Group, and then he took over the brand Omega, and that's another story how he made this brand more successful as it already was. So my advice to all these young brokers or also older brokers, again, make something different. And the best would be for sure if they register on e-locations and advertise their listings, and then we give them the data about the people who are searching for properties in their region, and then they have it much easier because we give them also the email address and possibly the telephone number of the retailer. Also for the retailer, it's good, not only for the broker, because today retailers get so many phone calls and emails from all kind of people all around the world who want to sell them something, and they also want to be focused, and they cannot check all the emails and cannot answer all the phone calls. So they want to have also a platform. That's what we are creating for them at the same time, so that they get only the offers what they want to see, where they have a need for a new store, and not for locations where they already are. Or sometimes H&M gets also 50 square meters locations offered, or 50,000 to be extreme. So we are making everybody more efficient.
Well, message received from the people who have found this interesting to listen to. Is there anything we have not covered, Marc, in terms of the real estate world within retail?
Well, we can talk another hour in your next podcast if you want. There's so much to say, so many interesting new brands which are coming up, or also new locations for sure, yeah.
Are there any specific brands that you are noticing at the moment in retail that has tickled your interest?
Yeah, so our daughter is sitting on the same chair since almost 8 years, a wooden chair where she can grow up to 12, 13 years. And it's produced by a company called Stocke. And I knew that we have this chair at home, but I didn't know the company Stocke. So one day we've been approached by the expansion manager of this Finnish company. I think it's from Finland.
I think it's from Norway, actually.
Oh, Norway.
Yeah, I talked to the former international retail director from Stocke in my first episodes. Yeah, so tell me a little bit more, sorry.
Yeah. And then he wanted us to promote all his shop openings in Korea, in Moscow, in Singapore. And he sent us already the text of the news, so we didn't have to work on this. We just read it. And that's the ideal situation. A new brand comes to us and tells us we want to open here and there new shops in prime locations. And then we know exactly our preferred partners, our agents. We also bring them into competition. We don't give this information only to one broker, but also to several brokers. And then it's always competition is good for everybody. And the best one will win at the end and find the new shops in the new cities where Stocke wants to open new stores between Chanel and Hermes. Normally, you won't think that they go to luxury locations. It's all valuable information, what we collect and what we give to the brokers out there in the world.
So for all retailers listening out there, the e-location limits is definitely an interesting platform to check out, and also to actually maybe get in contact with Marc, just to understand what are the possibilities here for us to look at our retail expansion plan and then be focused on that through the platform, right?
Thank you. Yes. So you can register on www.elocations.com for free. You don't need a credit card, nothing. Everything is really for free. You can scout all the locations in the world. For example, you can go to Shanghai and see all the Nanjing Road, what you don't see on Google Earth or Google Street View. And then you can contact us. We have a worldwide free number, 0800, and then a location, or very easy, just info@location.com. That's the channel. Email address if you have a question about the website, or if you want to reach me personally, it's mcr@elocations.com.
Marc, for me this has been very interesting to get more an insight into how your world works, and I must say I'm really curious to see where the retail transition will take us. And I think the fight for locations and the fight for the right locations with the right negotiations and leases is undoubtedly one of the key things we need to have control of to make sure we can be successful in our physical stores. And Marc, I thank you for your time, and I hope that it will be one of many. Maybe there will be some specific business cases we can dig into if we talk in the future again.
Thank you very much. It was also a pleasure for me, and also very interesting. My first podcast in such almost an hour. Very interesting. Also your questions. Thank you for having me.